Hey everyone, what's going on? Christopher, the video game historian here, and today I want to do something a little different in terms of my videos. Today I want to take a look at the Assassin's Creed series and talk a little bit about the time frame in which they're all set. Now, if you played any of the games, you know that they're typically set in unique periods of time, such as the Golden Age of Piracy, Ancient Egypt, or the Third Crusade. And as such, these events help move the story forward for the player and the protagonists, and that's what I want to look at today. I want to take a look at each game's unique setting and the real history that took place in the background of these stories. Now, I'm certainly not going to get through all the game's settings in this video, so this will be somewhat of a mini-series for me as I tackle a couple of titles each week in chronological order of each game's setting. So for this video, I am taking a look at the time periods behind the two earliest games in the series, Assassin's Creed Odyssey and Assassin's Creed Origins. So let's begin with Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which is the earliest game in the franchise, taking place from 431 to 422 BCE. In Odyssey, we follow the mythos Kassandra, who is on her own Odyssey in seeking to reunite with her family and to break her brother Alexios back to reality and away from the clutches of the cult of Cosmos. Now, all the while that Kassandra's story is taking place, the Peloponnesian War is going on in the background. This war raged on between Athens and Sparta from between 431 to 404 BCE. And while causes for the war are often debated, it is often suggested that Sparta feared the rapid growth and accumulation of power of Athens, along with the political friction happening between the two city-states. You see, in 478 BCE, Athens and other Greek city-states united together to form what would become known as the Athenian or Delian League, and eventually a rival to the Peloponnesian League, of which Sparta was the dominant city-state in. As additional polises were allying themselves to Athens and joining the League, the city-state's power, both politically and militarily, began to grow rapidly to the point it would threaten the power of Sparta. Athens had quickly developed from a small city-state in the Greek world to an empire with a powerful naval presence that dominated trade routes in the Mediterranean. As Athens' power grew, Sparta, as the historian Thucydides states, began to fear them, which ultimately led to war with the two superpowers of the Greek world at each other's throats. Now, there are more causes as to why the Peloponnesian War began, but they are far too complex to get into now with a lot of nuances and politics to really get into in this video. Needless to say that the war would last around 30 years, with Athens eventually surrendering to Sparta and being absorbed into the Peloponnesian League. As a result of the war, the Spartans and the rest of the Greek world were too weak militarily and politically, as well as still recovering from the war, that the Macedonians under the leadership of King Philip II managed to conquer and take control of the Greek city-states after their defeat at the Battle of Chaeronea in 338 BCE. Under Philip II, a new league would be created, the Hellenic League, which unified all of Greek as a single political entity for the first time in history. Philip II, however, would be assassinated just 2 years later in 336, never seeing his dream fulfilled. Moving on and following the events of Odyssey is Assassin's Creed Origins, set during the Ptolemaic period of ancient Egypt, specifically between 49 and 43 BCE. In Origins, we follow the Magi Bayek and his wife Aya, or Amunet as she becomes later, as they hunt down members of the Order of the Ancients across Egypt, seeking revenge for the murder of their son Hemu. By the end of their story, they have successfully eliminated the Order from Egypt and begun to form the foundations of a new creed, working in the shadows to deliver justice known as the Hidden Ones. Their journey was set during the end of the Ptolemaic period of Egypt, which dates back to 332 BCE, when Alexander the Great, son of Philip II, and his Macedonian army invaded and took control of Egypt. Now, the Egyptians at the time were under Persian rule, and seeing the Macedonians as liberators, they managed to take Egypt without a fight. Now, this is not the origins of the Ptolemaic dynasty, and in fact, the politics and leaderships that led up to the beginnings of the dynasty is filled with complexities and nuance best saved for another day. In short, after Alexander the Great left Egypt in 331, he left leadership up to his two generals, Balocrus and Peucestus, in what was essentially a civil administration called a satrap, leaving them to rule as intermediaries. When Alexander the Great died in 323 BCE, the power he left behind was divided among his generals, where Ptolemy was able to claim the position of satrap in Egypt. On November 7, 305 BCE, Ptolemy would be crowned pharaoh of Egypt as Ptolemy I Soter, and over the next 300 years, his line of descendants would rule the Egyptian people until it came to an end with Cleopatra VII, the last pharaoh of Egypt. Now, Ptolemy's line would stay pure Greek heritage for well over 300 years, as his descendants would often marry their sisters, who ruled jointly as co-regent by their brother's husband's side. While a majority of the rulers during the Ptolemaic period were men, there were a handful of women who ruled as queens of Egypt during this time period, including Cleopatra VII, who was ruling pharaoh during the events of Origins, ruling alongside Ptolemy XIII, her brother and husband. Now, it was during their reign that sets the stage for Origins, for shortly before Origins begins, historically is when Ptolemy tried to depose his wife Cleopatra from ruling, leading to a civil war between brother and sister, husband and wife. During the war, Cleopatra would exile herself from Egypt before returning with an army to confront Ptolemy's forces. In the hopes to gain reinforcements and an alliance with the Romans, Ptolemy had learned that the Roman general Pompey the Great was making his way for Egypt and in pursuit by his rival Julius Caesar. In hoping to secure an alliance with Caesar, Ptolemy ordered Pompey's capture and beheading, but all this did was disgust Caesar and failed to secure the alliance Ptolemy had hoped. Now, while Ptolemy failed to secure Roman alliance, Cleopatra did not, and convinces Caesar to help her in her fight against her husband, in order to be the rightful ruler of Egypt. With this alliance secured, Cleopatra, with the help of the Romans, managed to finally defeat Ptolemy and his forces in 47 BCE at the Battle of the Nile. With her victory and Ptolemy's death, Cleopatra was the unchallenged ruler of Egypt until her death in 30 BCE, where she took her own life by poison after her forces were defeated at the Battle of Actium by the Roman general Octavian. Shortly after the battle, Octavian and his men took control of the city of Alexandria, and with that, the Ptolemaic line had come to an end. Now, despite all that, Egypt actually thrived under Ptolemaic reign, with Greeks beginning to settle in the area, bringing their culture and traditions along the way, with major cities becoming centers for trade, such as the Fayum, Philadelphia, Alexandria, and others. In fact, Alexandria would become a center for art, literature, knowledge, and even trade, where luxury goods from the east were imported, while domestic produce was exported throughout the Mediterranean. The Library of Alexandria would be an indispensable resource for scholars all over, containing an estimated 500,000 or more papyrus scrolls and books. Alexandria would also see huge advancements in science, mathematics, mechanics, physics, geography, and medicine during this period as well. And that's where I'm going to leave off with this video. I hope you all enjoyed it, as this is something different that I'm working on, and if there's any aspect of any of these games that you want me to dive deeper into, please let me know in the comments below. Next week, I hope to tackle Assassin's Creed Valhalla and Assassin's Creed 1, since they not only take place less than 400 years apart, but they both signify the Hidden Ones starting to come to an end in Valhalla and being reformed into the Assassin's Brotherhood as we see them in Assassin's Creed 1. Anyway guys, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel, and let me know what you thought of this new endeavor of mine in the comments below. Also, don't forget to follow me on Twitter, and I hope to see you next week as I take a look at the Great Heathen Army and the Third Crusade.